We're coming, and we ain't backing down.
We don't need a bunch of cats in here looking in the mirror.
Everybody just do your job. You understand that?
Hey, will you shut up?
I'm bitterly disappointed with the officiating today.
Guys being dudes.
And they run through our like through a tin horn, man.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Split Zone Duo listeners. I'm Alex Kirshner, joined here by my co-host, Richard Johnson. Richard, Mac time.
It's Tuesday as we record it. Hopefully this episode comes out Wednesday. So yeah, prime action, baby.
Yeah, we're doing it at the appropriate time of the week. Season preview season rolls along. We are going to keep doing these one or two a week or so on average until we are through all of FBS and have done some FCS work at the end of August. If it's your first Split Zone Duo preview, you'll learn the drill quickly. We're going roses, buds, and thorns for every team in the conference. Rose, thing we think we're going to like. Bud, thing we're kind of curious to see. Thorn, thing we don't really like, have some concerns about. Richard, as we get into action here, you're going to kick us off with the program that, well, just about every year is most widely considered to be the favorite in this conference.
Your friend and mine, Toledo, do not believe they have had a losing season in, I think, like 10 years, probably more than 10 years, if I have that correct. It might be even 15. So the expectations are the expectations for them. And the expectation is win the league. And if you win the league because of our current format, you at least have some chance, significant, of being the G5 entrant into the college football playoff. Like, it's on the table.
2009, the last losing season for the Rockets. That was under Tim Beckman, believe it or not. The guy who came before Matt Campbell. Beckman went on to Illinois, where it did not go well, if you remember.
No, it did not, and it ended very, very poorly. Toledo, the rose here for Toledo is they actually have an intra MAC transfer in Trayon Rudolph. He's a Northern Illinois transfer, and buddy, will we talk about Northern Illinois' transfer situation when we get to the Huskies a little later in this episode. But this is a player tore his ACL in 2022, rebounded for nice 23 and 24 campaigns. He's a receiver on the smaller side. But he gives them a shiftiness. He gives them an explosive ability on offense for Toledo. And it's just interesting that he's at Toledo and not at a higher tier school, which is curious. Fourth school transfer, Chip Traynham. You remember that name?
I do remember Chip Traynham.
Is at Toledo.
So, fourth school. He's been at Ohio State. He's been at Kentucky. What am I missing?
He may have started somewhere. Let me look that
It's
up.
just funny that in college football now we have like baseball reference style guy remembering.
Arizona
like what?
The other one.
Arizona State. Unbelievable. Yeah, this is a new thing in college football. It's like which 19 major league teams did Edwin Jackson pitch for? We have a version of that in college football now.
Yeah,
and Chip Traynham encapsulates it.
Yeah, Arizona State is Arizona State during the COVID season when he was a true freshman. But he is from Akron, so he's from the Ohio area, I should say. So yeah, he's here. He was at Kentucky last year, which segues into my bud, which is, hey man, this team could beat Kentucky. Like it's like this.
Yeah,
they're going to be around a 10-point underdog in that game. They can win that game. Absolutely.
Oh, 100%. In fact, I mean, I'll skip ahead because this was one of my two low-key cool games of the year that I'm going to do in superlatives. I've started ahead on the SEC for when we do that preview later in the year. And dude, Kentucky is a wasteland right now. Kentucky is going to be terrible this year. I can find almost no reason to be even partially optimistic about them. So I do think Toledo, which got an SEC win last year against the worst team in the league, Mississippi State, has a chance to do it again against what could be the worst team in the league this year, Kentucky. I'm aligned with you on that.
A thorn and a reason why they might not be Kentucky is they are rocked up front, particularly in the defensive interior. Darius Taylor is on the New York Giants, or at least in camp with the New York Giants when Giants camp starts, which means he's a pretty good player for a MAC player to make a roster, or at least come close to making a roster. Kayvon Butler also is a defensive interior lineman for them. He has graduated, been a veteran player for them. So it's going to be hard to replace that on the interior. It is hard to replace interior linemen anywhere pretty much to have them play worth a damn. So that makes them a little bit less so as far as the upset alert. But whether they beat Kentucky or not, this is a team that should be in Detroit. It's Detroit, right?
They have it in Detroit.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's a team that should be in Detroit the first weekend of December.
Tend to agree. That's the fair expectation for Toledo year in and year out when you look at the general resource edge that these guys have over the rest of the conference. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, they were not very good running the ball last year, which is, I think, just sort of a difference for them. They do have to get that better if they want to make a serious run, but that's kind of the only thorn that I could really find on the offensive side of the ball.
Toledo every year, I think, is more or less a proposition in this league of, are they going to blow a bunch of close games? And if they're not, the answer is they're going to be right there for the league. This was a multi-year problem, which I'm not sure I would chalk up to anything other than bad luck for a handful of years before 2023 when they won the league. Before 2022 when they won the league. And when they've been good, they've just not tended to have that parade of awful variance / luck / mismanagement at the end of games that got Jason Candle maybe a little bit unpopular a few years ago. But he is still here in this job for now. Other long-term best team in the MAC over its history, the team that is kind of right there with Toledo as the class of the league, the Miami University Redhawks. These guys are interesting to me lately. I think that their arc the past few years has been kind of a standout for how a group of 5 team deals with getting completely rated in the portal year after year and yet does not fall off a performance cliff. And to that end, my rose here is their quarterback situation. They are going to bring in DeQuan Finn, most recently at Baylor, but previously a very successful MAC quarterback for Toledo, where he was the best quarterback in the league for a good Toledo thing. He has already played parts of 5 seasons in the MAC, and this is going to be his 6th. So his 7th in college football. Started playing college football when Barack Obama was the president of the United States.
My man.
Now, should this be happening in the sport? No, it should not.
Right. And by the way, to be clear on our stance here, Chip Trainum's fine because Chip Trainum's a running back. Chip Trainum's okay. By all means, go nuts.
Look, in general, pave the way for a young quarterback. It's going to kill development at this position. You know where we stand on this. But I'm going to make an exception for Miami because Miami has just been bludgeoned by the portal in so many ways. You're right. It's actually not principled.
No legislative carve-outs. He's trying to pork barrel legislation, folks.
It's not principled for me to do this, but I think he's going to be good. I think, it didn't work out for him at Toledo. He wasn't healthy for most of the year. I believe he was designated as out for the year fairly early, and Sawyer Robertson came in and supplanted him. I forget the exact injury timeline on Finn, but it just wasn't good. He is now back at a level where, for a fact that he can not only, win the league and be, a competitive quarterback, but where he's been the best quarterback in this league before, multiple years in the past, but I think it's going to be good. My thorn is who's going to be protecting DeQuan Finn. No starters are back on the offensive line.
Not great.
And they also have nobody who's even been a starter, like anywhere. They have 3 career starts all across the college careers of the players in this offensive line room, which is dead last in FBS, according to the accounting by our man Phil Steele, who counts these things down to the game. Truly wild man, Phil, but we appreciate that kind of legwork being done by somebody. They lost 2 all-conference tackles from last year's team. They are a blank slate. And on top of that, they go to Wisconsin and Rutgers to start. 2 pretty physical outfits, or at least Rutgers is and Wisconsin aspires to be. And so you have some worry about them just getting their teeth kicked in from the start. Fortunately, they do have a bye after that before they get into the rest of their season. So in kind of classic MAC fashion, you might see them take their lumps early and then get into MAC play and start to look the way that you hope that they will look. My bud sort of goes to what I was talking about how they deal with getting portaled to death, which is they don't let it go all the way to death. This team gets crushed every year in the offseason. And it was really bad off of their MAC championship season when they won in 2023, lost a ton of guys. It was pretty bad again off of last year. Part of that was just eligibility expiring. Like they lost one of the best linebackers in the history of the MAC, Matt Salopek, who was a tackle machine for several years for them.
Are those real tackles, or how's your accounting there?
It was not a huge number of assists, if memory serves. A lot of solo tackles, which causes the alarm bells to stay quiet for me.
Good to know.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Assisted tackle merchants, we're going to look at very closely. By the way, you do have to pay attention a bit to Buffalo, which we'll get to in this preview over the course of the show.
Here we go.
But it's happened to him again. Like Rayon Strader, good cornerback for them at Auburn. Javon Tracy, their best wide receiver, is at Minnesota. Like the top end of this roster is just going to get picked apart all the time. It's a multi-year thing. And because they have had, I think Miami maybe is a little bit more susceptible to it because they definitely do not have much, if any, of an NIL budget, period, the end. And yet they're pretty good. And so power conference coaches are going to take a scan down this roster as Alabama has done, as Oklahoma has done, as Ole Miss has done.
Shopping, baby.
They're going to go shopping. And I'm curious about if Chuck Martin can just make them solid again, despite that continuing to happen. Remember, they made it to the MAC championship again last year. They got killed by Ohio in that game, but they've been pretty resilient in the face of maybe being like the defining example of how the portal era has been able to hollow out G5 rosters. And so I'm curious if they can do it again. Richard, Buffalo, speaking of which.
Yeah, your Buffalo Bulls, or our Buffalo Bulls, the state of New York's college football team, not New York City's college football team, of course, by the way. Sean Dolak is gone, which is a weird way to start my rose, but this was one of the best linebacker rooms in the country. Like, full stop last year.
Yes.
Red Murdoch, his running mate, is still on this team. However, he was one of the nation's leaders in TFLs last year. I mean, I don't really see why this isn't the best defense in the MAC, or at least on the short list for it. Deion Crawford also back in the linebacker room. He had 8.5 sacks last year. So, yeah, Sean Dolak is gone, but the linebacker room is still great.
Dolak's in camp, too, by the way, this summer. He's with the Rams.
Oh, an NFL camp. Oh, good for him. Yeah, great player. And
Buffalo's actually put a few linebackers in the NFL going back to Khalil Mack, but not even just him. Yeah.
And Khalil Mack, absolutely. And Kobe Stewart also is back. Kobe Stewart had a truckload of sacks last year off of the edge. So again, like I'm in on this defense, right? I'm here for it. The running game for me is a bud. Aljay Henderson is an 1,000-yard rusher. He is back here. Veteran offensive line. They have 2 all-MAC guards in Tyler Doty and Trevor Brock. I think you have to look at what Pete Lembo is doing and tip the cap a little bit, Alex.
You do. This was a weird hire when it was made. Did not make a lot of sense to me, and it's been a really nice first year. And the emergence of Aljay Henderson was a great feather in their cap. This was a guy who'd been in the program for an entire college career's worth. He had been there 4 years and just emerged last year. I will note, Richard, that I do look at it with a little bit of a raised eyebrow when I noticed that the top 5 in assisted tackles last year has 2 teams represented with 2 players each. Buffalo being one of those teams, and Mississippi State being the other.
I also think the TFL data.
Yeah, but the TFLs, it's like you're tackled behind the line or not. Mississippi State, by the way, is a frequent flyer.
It's the object of the exercise on defense.
Mississippi State the last couple of years has been right at the top of the assisted tackles leaderboard. So I'm always going to notice this when a team has multiple guys kind of dotting the very top of that leaderboard. But that is not to say that I disagree with you that Murdoch and Dolak were a great linebacking tandem last year, and the Buffalo is going to continue to have a really good front 7 this year. We are in total alignment.
He's just noticing, folks. That's all he's doing is noticing.
I'm just noticing. I'm not saying anything. And I don't need Lembo to give a press conference about it either, but I'm just noticing.
Have you noticed the quarterback that Buffalo is going to trot out this year?
Yeah, I think I talked about this one in the offseason vibe checks, and I'm curious because you kept up with the book report on what it looks like at the end of the summer. Is it Taquan Roberson?
It is. It is Taquan Roberson.
Speaking of Obama administration quarterbacks.
Yeah, Taquan Roberson, you may remember him as the young man who was thrust into a Penn State Iowa game a few years ago, and Penn State literally could not move the ball in that game. If that is your only impression of him, hold. He did go to UConn, was three school. This is his fourth school, I should say. Went to UConn, played at UConn as well. Also was at Kansas State last year. Did not really factor much for Kansas State, kind of came off the bench. But he did start 10 games for UConn in 2023. So Taquan Roberson, I do think what's interesting about Roberson in this offense is they're going to run the piss out of the ball. Like, I think that's pretty clear. I think that's kind of the plan here. Run the piss out of the ball, play good defense. All right, man. Cool. I'm in.
Yeah, no, I've seen worse ideas. I think that this is one of the 3 or 4 best teams in the MAC, and a good goal for them this season is to get to Detroit. I think that's right there for them. They've been there in the recent past. Continuing to Athens, Ohio, home of the Ohio Bobcats. Rose for me is that they should have one of the best quarterbacks in this league, and maybe if you look closely, one of the best quarterbacks in the G5, though I don't want to do the thing that we like to do around here every year, which is like, oh, is this guy going to be the MAC's next great quarterback? We've put that on so many different people over the years of the show, and it hasn't really worked out. But Parker Navarro was, I don't think it's going to happen. But Parker Navarro was second team all-conference last year. He's a joy to watch. He's a legit 1,000-yard rusher who can also push the ball down the field a bit with his arm. I noticed something when I was looking over this, because I noticed how high his rushing totals were by the end of last year. I don't know why, but quarterback runs had a little bit of a dip that I'm not sure a lot of us noticed. I definitely didn't in the moment. And the numbers are a bit skewed by sacks in the official stats because it's the NCAA and it's dumb. But I think it's notable that quarterback rushing yards per game, they went way up, as you would expect, in the early to mid 2010s as RPOs were getting hot. They peaked from like 2016 to 19 at around 52 yards per team game. Your quarterback would run for an average of about 52 yards. But then it really fell off starting with the COVID year and then got down to about 42 quarterback rushing yards per team game in 21 and 22. And then went back up in 23 and hit almost an all-time high last year at about 52.
So what's your thesis here?
I'm just flagging it for further investigation, actually.
You're just noticing this too.
And I was not able to figure it out in 2 or 3 days of trying to formulate something for this preview. But it is clear that quarterbacks were, for a couple of years there out of the pandemic, were just not very successful runners of the ball.
Well, did anything change with attempts significantly in this span, or is it a success thing? Did you look up success rate? Again, it's a working theory. It's a working theory.
Nothing changed significantly with attempts. Typically in a given year, you're going to see quarterbacks run the ball nationwide. Well, this counts sacks again because the NCAA is ridiculous. But according to Sport Radar, you're going to see well over 10,000. Yeah.
Hold on a second. Your total yards numbers are going to be skewed by the fact that nobody played 12 games in 2020.
No, I mean, again, 2020, but even 2020, it was like they were averaging 2.75 yards per carry, which was the lowest since before RPOs picked up. And again, this is kind of ridiculous because the NCAA includes sacks in these stats, and you'd have to filter those out. But I just think it seems unmistakable to me that quarterbacks were, for a couple of years, particularly in 22 and 23, were just not toting the rock the way that we have come to expect.
We do have the technology to filter out sacks. I know there are people who are listening to this that have the technology to filter out sacks.
Oh yes.
Let's do some more work here. Let's filter those sacks out and let's come to a conclusion. Again, working theory. This is the boiler room right now. You're into it on the back end of Split Zone Duo behind the curtain. So let's do some more work here. We'll come back to the audience with our final findings.
I think that's reasonable. I would love to hear from some of you who might have theories about why this has happened. But Parker Navarro,
I run on data, baby. I run on data.
Parker Navarro kind of stands apart from, this quarterback running era as like a guy who really does it well. Last year, he was one of 5 guys at the position who ran for more than 1,000 yards after the sacks are included, which is obviously pretty hard to do for a college quarterback because sacks count against rushing yards. I look forward to seeing another year of him here. He stuck around with Brian Smith after Tim Albin, the head coach, left to go to Charlotte. And he represents hope for a repeat MAC championship for this program. My bud is that C.A. Bangura, who was a good running back here previously and went to Minnesota last year, is back. Maybe a grow where you're planted situation. We've talked about those at a couple of different G5 spots. Could be an all-conference running back, but is he the same guy that he was when he bounced? You have to see that, and you don't really know until you've gotten some games under your belt. I am also curious, Richard, Budwise, just to see if anything feels different around this program now that they are the dog that caught the car. They had not won the MAC since 56 years earlier.
Sure.
They had been in the game roughly 1 million times.
Right, yeah, literally was trying to say approximately 1 million times.
And been unable to win. My thought is that it probably doesn't change a lot, especially when you have a coaching change and you promote the coordinator, Brian Smith, after Albin leaves. But, this is a program that perpetually was the bridesmaid in this conference and just never got to have the special day where it was all about Ohio. And they finally get it in pretty dominating fashion against Miami. And now what? What do you do next? I'm intrigued to see that.
Low-key, Bud, I'm told Mason Williams, tight end for them, is in the non-Harold Fannin category of good MAC tight ends. Pay attention to him. Also, just because it came up in a conversation I had about Ohio this season, their left tackle is 5'11", which means their left tackle is shorter than me. Now, look, we appreciate body positivity on Split Zone Duo. That's what we're about. There's no ragging on the young man because of how he's built. But a 5'11" left tackle is just to say,
pretty short.
Mac life is hard, man, and that's just an example.
Pretty short. Look, we're one of the most body positive college football podcasts you will find out there. And if you're 5'9" and you put in your Hinge profile that you're 5'11", that's completely fine. Height's a social construct, as far as I'm concerned. No, I wouldn't do that. But I'm a little.
You're out of the game now. But
I think these days I might have dropped below 5'11", to be honest with you. And by these days, I mean for the entirety of my life. We're talking more of a true 5'10". It's tough. So I'm not getting called to play left tackle. I feel like I'm reaching for a thorn. I actually think the MAC, for a MAC program that lost its coach, and we know what can happen when any G5 team, especially a MAC team, loses a coach. You could expect a complete reset of the roster. I feel like they didn't really have that.
Well, they promoted off the court.
Yeah. They lose possibly, I would even say probably the best player on the team, certainly the best offensive weapon, Coleman Owen, wide receiver, who's in the NFL now. He didn't get as much run last year, including on our show, because when we were talking MAC skill position players, MAC pass catchers, we were talking Harold Fannin. But he's a good player, and he's in the NFL now. And I'm not sure that they have a version of that this year, though Grant Williams, the tight end, was one of the best freshman skill position players in college football last year. Maybe you get an emergence from him. Maybe you get a reemergence from Bangura, and you're able to continue to have really high-end MAC skill position talent. But we're going to find out.
Let's move to Northern Illinois. Northern Illinois. Woo! All right, let's talk about it. We don't really... We try not to take transfers out as a thorn, especially with MAC, with G5 schools, especially with MAC schools. But sometimes you just have to take the layup here. And Alex, from our good friend of the show, Bill Connolly, Thomas Hammock's Huskies lost their starting quarterback, top 2 running backs, top 4 pass catchers, 5 of their top 6 offensive linemen, 11 of 16 defenders with at least 200 snaps, which includes the top 4 defensive tackles from last year's team and both coordinators.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
On the offensive side of the ball, in comes Quinn Sanders, offensive coordinator for the University of Charleston, not the College of Charleston. This one's in West Virginia. Division 2 school. But they have been one of D2's best teams the last few years. Squarely in the top 10, won a couple conference titles. Sanders is, that's his alma mater. He's actually from Florida, but ended up at the University of Charleston, which is just interesting. They're going to run the piss out of the ball. They're going to do it from the gun. They're going to spread some things out. If the scant amount of University of Charleston film that I watched last night is any indication, you better learn how to guard a bubble screen if you're on the perimeter of any of the MAC teams that Northern Illinois will face this year in their swan song in the Mid-American Conference, by the way, obviously because they are leaving. And you better know how to fit a sniffer, because Northern Illinois is going to run a sniffer offense, which is basically an H-back that lines up like behind the guard or in the offensive backfield. So it's going to look really weird. It's something you don't really see a lot. You'll see it sometimes a little bit in the NFL. The Rams do it sometimes, and it's kind of a funky thing, and gives you gives you the I formation vibes out of the shotgun, which is you better figure out how to fit off of a blocker who's coming out of the backfield. So it's going to be interesting because they're a really young team and they're a really new team because of pretty much all I've said. So the rose, the bud, and the thorn all kind of overlap here for Northern Illinois. Notre Dame not on the schedule, I don't believe. So congratulations.
Yeah. Their games this year with the Power Four are at Maryland and then a bye and at Mississippi State. I don't think that this is a good NIU year because of everything that you just said, but it's definitely not a good Maryland year and it's definitely not a good Mississippi State year. And what I'm suggesting is that maybe kind of like last year, you just get a road win for them that you feel like you hallucinated, that you can't believe happened. It would be much more believable this time around. Mississippi State or Maryland.
All right.
I'm not expecting it, but one does wonder. One does wonder.
Do they have one of those? Do they have one of those teams week 1?
No, they have Holy Cross week 1, and actually that one is going to be coming up in the FCS upset draft. If I were to guess.
Oh no! All right.
Yeah, the FCS upset draft coming around the corner. By the way, folks.
One
of my favorite things to do.
Also, Miami of Ohio content. I don't want to spoil anything for the listening audience, but we got some humdingers coming on Miami of Ohio from the great man Alex Kirshner. Watch this space.
Yes, do watch this space. A lot coming, by the way, in the next week or two on Split Zone Duo. We've got exciting off-season plans. Keeping it moving here. Directional schools. Eastern Michigan from Northern Illinois. My rose here is Terry Lockett, wide receiver. It is close to impossible to keep even a quasi-proven wide receiver around the MAC anymore. Of last year's top 11 yardage receivers in this conference, that includes at least one tight end, I think 2 tight ends, only one is back this year, that being Junior Vandeross at Toledo. 4 transferred out, the rest ran out of eligibility. Terry Lockett was like a 700-yard guy with 5 touchdowns last year for EMU, which is in returning MAC player terms like being a 1,200-yard guy returner. Like you just don't have practically anybody in this conference who you know for sure can be prolific at this level, catching the ball. And of course that happens in part because he's already lived the power conference life. He was a transfer from Michigan State a few years back. He's also been in college football for a while. He signed with Mark D'Antonio. It has been so long, but he's kicking around at a different green-colored Michigan school and had a really nice year last year. And particularly given a lot of the continuity questions that I'm about to talk about with this team, it's just good to have a guy who you know is going to be good for some big receiving games over the course of the season. My thorn, a whole lot gone in pretty much every other way that you could imagine for this team. I think the one that I will focus on is the defensive front.
Well, what's the full account? Is this a Northern Illinois situation?
No, it's not a Northern Illinois. They have more than that back. They have 5 starters back on offense, 3 on defense. But the defense is probably the one that I'm most worried about. Chris Creighton is a very meat and potatoes guy. Chris Creighton has had some pretty respectable defenses that play on that gray field, and sort of create this feeling that you are in hell when you are playing at Eastern Michigan. And that can be hard to keep up when you lose as much as they have lost this year. It's their top 10 or so tacklers gone from last year's team, and just a lot to continue to backfill. I mean, Creighton has been here for, this is his 12th year. Like, Creighton knows the deal at this point. This is not the first time that he's had basically a shift change as he has been restocking this roster.
Shift change.
And my guess is that they're going to continue to. Also, I say shift change. I mean, their coaches have literally worn like auto body shop style sideline shirts.
Yes, they
over
have.
the course of his tenure. I mean, it's an unintentional reference there, but very, very much fitting in the state of Michigan. So it's just a big ask to continue to do this. And they were only 5-7 last year. I mean, they are solid just about every year now. But, I think for those of us who are rooting for, like, is there a chance that Eastern Michigan could go to Detroit, win the league? You'd like to see them win the league at some point, just because I think he is highly regarded. He's been there a while. I'm not sure that this is the year to expect that. My buds are just the offensive skill position guys who weren't here last year or who weren't really playing last year, who are kind of interesting. The main one is Dante McMillan, the running back, who was injured early last year and was supposed to be kind of a featured part of their backfield. I think they're going running back by committee. They're going to have at least 3 or 4 guys who are probably going to get a lot of carries. But how McMillan plays in a season in which he is not out for almost the entire year, I think is worth watching. And Richard, they're trying to find something with a third school quarterback. Noah Kim, previously Michigan State and Coastal.
Oh, wow.
Not, I'm never the most excited about continuing to drop down a level and then again for a quarterback. Like, that doesn't make me think, this is going to be the level where he's good. But what else are you going to do? Like, you want to, like, also you got a wide receiver like Lockett back. You got to have someone with some degree of experience or upside throwing the ball to him. So that's what Eastern Michigan is trying to do.
Yeah. All right. Ad break real quick. Alex, what are you doing August 23rd? It's a month from now.
It is a month from now as this episode should be coming out. Yeah, this is exciting. It's the Sports Podcast Festival. I'm getting tongue twisted. We have a promo code for you. We want you to use the code SZD at checkout at splitzoneduolive.com. Get 25% off your ticket to the Sports Podcast Festival, which you and I are headlining along with our dear friend Stephen Godfrey. We're going to bring in the college football season. It's on week 0 Saturday, so it's a great day for it. We're going to have a little bit of North Carolina ACC Bojangles belt adjacent stuff going on at the show.
It's in Raleigh.
It's in Raleigh. Did I not say it was in Raleigh? Yeah, it's in Raleigh, in North Carolina. A wonderful airport, by the way, where I've flown in many times. The whole place looks like a hangar. It respects the Wright brothers tradition, flying in the state of North Carolina.
Were they actually? I'm sure you actually know the answer to this question. Were they actually first in flight, or was that actually Ohio? What's the deal there? I know that there's some discrepancy there.
Oh, right, because Dayton tries to get involved in this.
North Carolinians stand up.
That's outside my pay grade. Honestly, I don't know. Okay. But I do want you to come to the Sports Podcast Festival in Raleigh. It's at the Rialto. SplitZoneDuoLive.com for tickets. We want to see you there. Godfrey wants to see you there. It's going to be a great show, lively crowd, and we want to have you as part of it. Also, Richard, want to say thank you to Homefield. Homefield at homefieldapparel.com offers collections for, I believe, the entire MAC. Maybe I'm missing 1 or 2. I think not, though. I think it's the entire league. And if not, let's just say that it is. But if you are a fan of any of the teams we are talking about on this podcast, there is an excellent chance, close to or literally 100%, that if you go to homefieldapparel.com, there is something there for you. Homefield makes extremely well thought out, thoughtful, vintage, extremely comfortable collegiate sports apparel. And you should use the promo code SZD for 20%, SZD20, SZD20 for 20% off your first order at Homefield.
Alex, another proud partner, Split Zone Duo, Nokian Tires.
Absolutely. You should go to nokiantires.com/SZD. That's tires with a Y. Enter your college football road trip ideas or plans for the coming season and be entered in the monthly tire drawing that Nokian runs for the Split Zone Duo audience. I will also note, Richard, saw some Nokian in the wild this week. So my Nokian tires, I've been extremely happy with them. I'm on like my 4th year using them since they've been with the podcast. They have been very durable. I've changed them out just once, I think, just because Nokian offered me a new set. So I've had very few trips to tire shops. We did drive over a nail last week, which, going to happen in Los Angeles. And so we went into the tire shop to get this patched. And there was Nokian Tires signage all over the tire shop. We had a real moment with the tire shop fellas talking about how they were selling the absolute finest in American tires made at their factory in Dayton, Tennessee. It was so pleasant that they passed the tire for free. So thank you, Nokian. You're paying dividends in my life in ways that I didn't even expect.
As we found out, difficult to ship tires directly to an auto body shop to get them on your car. That's a thing both of us have had to deal with. I, at one point in time, had tires in my previous apartment's home office before we get that job done. So it's tricky. Hopefully your new friends can help you out with that.
Anyway, thank you very much to the crew from Nokian Tires. Richard, we continue with Bowling Green.
Bowling Green made one of the most inspired hires in the coaching cycle a little bit late because Scott Loeffler left to go to the Philadelphia Eagles in like February. So late in the coaching, I don't even know if you call that the coaching cycle. It's basically spring practice. They hired Eddie George from Tennessee State University. Do not expect them to be a Luddite run the rock offense, I will say, with Eddie George. They throw the ball a lot, like a lot. They did so last year en route to, I believe, a 9-3 season and a playoff berth for Tennessee State. Now, they're not HBCU conference. They were in the OVC last year, but they made a run to the postseason, which is big. A lot of investment into Tennessee State. Also, Eddie George has an interesting buyout negotiation that's currently still ongoing because he is still under an MOU because of how late in the cycle he got hired. Basically, his buyout is lessened by a potential guarantee payout if Bowling Green schedules Tennessee State in the future for a non-conference game. So they're still trying to hammer out the details of all of that. But I thought that was a good bit of business for Tennessee State to do in the Eddie George negotiation and Eddie George leaving.
How do you think? I would ask you this way: what do you think we learned about Eddie George's style at Tennessee State, and to what extent do you think he profiles differently? Because I think it might be much differently than the last celebrity coach to go HBCU to FBS.
I wouldn't say that differently in specifically so much as he is definitely a CEO. Like he's running the CEO play, so to speak. He brought both coordinators with him from East Tennessee State, which is also, again, it's a rose, but it's also a thorn on the other end, which is Eddie ready for this? Again, it's an inspired hire. It's a bold hire by Bowling Green, but he brought both coordinators with him. There's a co-OC situation where as I understand it, the offensive line coach is kind of more of the primary offensive coordinator sort of thing. And then Jeff Fisher's former Titans coach and Rams coach, Jeff Fisher's son, Brandon, is the defensive coordinator. Brandon Fisher was with him at Tennessee State, and Jeff was initially on this staff at Tennessee State before Jeff went to the USFL. Obviously, Jeff, the longtime head coach of Eddie with the Tennessee Titans when Eddie was, an all-pro running back. So I think you're going to see a CEO in that respect, the same as the last celebrity coach who went HBCU to FBS. No, he does not have approximately one of the most insane athletes we've ever seen in college football, or at least in recent times. No, he does not have his son as a capable starting quarterback.
Speaking of Travis Hunter, by the way, Richard, quick Jaguars check-in. He signed that contract yet?
Yes. Yeah. He signed a contract.
Oh,
Buddy,
okay, good.
If Travis Hunter hadn't signed his Jaguars contract a week before training camp, brother, I'd be losing some sleep. Let me
Sorry. There's so many NFL teams right now in messes signing their draft picks. So I think most of them were resolved the last few days.
But the thing is, it's mostly second round picks, right?
Yeah.
So my GM, James Gladstone, who will be leading the Jaguars to glory, said, guess what? We don't even want a second round pick. We're going to get rid of it. Who needs a second round pick he traded it to the Browns for Travis Hunter in the deal that became Travis Hunter. And look, don't need the first round pick next year because the first round pick is going to be like 30, 31, or 32 as the Jaguars return to glory.
Richard, a new entrant to this conference, the UMass Minutemen play in the MAC.
You got to let me get to my bud here with Bowling Green.
Excuse me. Yes, you didn't bud yet. Go ahead.
It's a good bud. Okay, Alex, do you know the middle name of new Bowling Green linebacker Gideon Lampron? You will never.
I'm guessing something biblical. Gideon's pretty biblical name.
You will never.
Is it like Zechariah or something?
You are not anywhere close.
What is it?
Gideon Lampron, transfer from Dayton. Linebacker, had 23 and a half tackles for loss last year, was an FCS All-American. This young man is a linebacker out of Central Casting. Does not wear a glove, does like a spatting of the wrist, a tape wrist situation. So his hands are all cut up, real linebacker type stuff. Thick neck, capital F, capital G football guy, whose middle name is ESPN.
That's his middle name.
Legal name. His legal name is Gideon ESPN Lampron. Look it up.
That's amazing. Yep, that's his name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they put it on the roster too.
Yeah. Gideon
Like,
ESPN Lampron.
They put it on his name like it's like Peter Joseph, like PJ, or
So-
like Mary Lou. Yeah,
So I'm in. I'm in for Gideon. I'm in for the Bowling Green defense. That's absolutely my bud.
where did you see this? Did you just notice this?
I can't remember. I can't remember actually how it came up, but I found it in my in our deep research here that we do in Split Zone Duo. Again, who's given you deep roster construction of MAC teams in the college football podcast space? Not many places. We got you.
Gideon ESPN Lampron.
Name
Okay.
analysis of MAC linebackers. We got you.
Yeah. You have a thorn here. I guess your thorn is just in general
Yeah,
questions about how this is going to go.
Yeah, it's a rose and it's a thorn regarding the Eddie situation. It could go well, it could go poorly. At the end of the day, though, again, shout out to the boldness from Bowling Green.
UMass joins this conference this year. I want to sort of, for my rose, sort of do a partial restatement, but an expansion of some stuff that we talked about in the offseason vibe check about these guys. Joe Harasimiak is in here as the head coach. He had been at Rutgers as defensive coordinator. He had been the head coach at Maine previously, solid FCS program. I like the concept that they are trying to get proof of with this hire. They have tried different archetypes here, and none of them have worked. They tried the old New England lifer ball coach thing with Don Brown. Didn't work. They tried the young play caller with no regional connection who wants to be a head coach and isn't getting burned elsewhere, so maybe he can come here and use you as a stepping stone with Walt Bell. That didn't work. Harasimiak has some regional connections and some history of getting performance that punches above the weight class that you would think they would get of the players on his units. He did that with Rutgers, really, the last few years. Rutgers has some pretty salty defenses, despite perennially being one of the lesser recruiting teams in the Big Ten. So you've got some regional tie. You've got some notion that this guy can coach ball. And he doesn't fit neatly into either of the kind of extremely polar opposite buckets that they've tried with Bell and with Brown recently. So is this going to work? Like, is he going to be the guy who turns this team into what, for instance, Buffalo is right now, where they become a pretty solid bowl bet year in and year out, and we get to stop talking about UMass as one of the worst teams in FBS every year? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. But it's worth a try, and I like that they're doing something different. And I also like that they're in the MAC now. They are a companion to Buffalo. Yeah, it's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I mean, sorry to their basketball program.
Sure.
But this is a football podcast. And so from a football perspective, I think it's going to be good for them that they're in this league. I should make that clear. If I was UMass's basketball coach, I wouldn't be very happy about this. But UMass is, the reason that I like it is that I feel like they have something to aspire towards. Now, like the MAC is a league, we say it every year, where upward mobility is much more possible here than it is in the vast majority of other conferences, even G5. And that doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. Like we've talked about Akron in this context, and my God, look at them the last few years. It's not like it always works, but they have something that they can aspire to and like a growth goal, which is to be a contender in this conference. And it's not impossible that they could do that. So I'm interested to see how it goes.
I would say this, Alex. I actually have some cause for optimism that UMass will be pretty competitive in the MAC. They're like actually spending money.
Yeah.
And okay.
On what? I
MAC,
understand it's relative.
no,
but
yes,
on what?
Yes, please.
On coaches or players or both?
Both. I would say this. Just understand for the audience, this is MAC adjusted. So
Everyone gets it.
yeah, you're going to hear the
Out with
numbers and you might laugh. But our friend of the show, Matt Baker, actually reported this over the offseason. Harasimiak will be among the MAC's highest paid coaches on average salary, 1.4 per year. But UMass's NIL budget, it's $2 million this year and $3 million the next.
Is that
is
department wide? I assume
that is. I know. It is my expectation that is for football. It's more than 6 times what the budget was last year, and that is expected to be top in the MAC. Again, it's all relative, but that is expected to be top in the MAC. If you're spending $3 million on a MAC football roster, I'm listening. I'm curious.
If you're spending a third of that on a MAC football roster, that ain't bad.
Yeah, like it's.
In fact, it's good. Yeah. Okay. No. Reason for hope, I think, abounds with UMass. I think more than definitely since we've been doing this, and I like it for them. I hope that we're able to see some decent UMass years in this conference. My bud, transfer quarterbacks from Utah and from Yale, Brandon Rose and Grant Jordan, and also AJ Hairston is still here. He was better than Taysom Pumachan last year. He's still around. So they got 3 options here of guys who have kind of interesting backgrounds in different ways. So could there be decent quarterback play for the Minutemen? Yeah, maybe. Also interesting is their offensive line, which is completely portaled. And it's this mix of schools. Let me know if you spot the one that's a little bit different than the others. You have Harvard, Northwestern, Dartmouth, and West Virginia transfers in here.
All are typically said in the same breath, as far as I'm concerned, academically, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, West Virginia has probably produced far fewer international white-collar criminals than the other institutions there. So I don't want to lump them in unfairly.
White collar, yes. White collar, yes.
My thorn is that it is kind of just it's a temperature check on everything I just said. This team went 2-10 last year. It is still UMass.
It's UMass.
And I could not really go through any part of this roster, and I was trying to, and say, this unit is definitely good. Couldn't find one. Tried. Maybe someone will. But there's nothing here right now on this roster that from our preseason don't know everything vantage point that we have, you can look at and get that excited about individually. And they just went 2-10. And they still have to go and play 2 guarantee games with Ferentz and with Mizzou and get body bagged in those games. So I don't need to belabor the point because everyone understands how hard a job this is, but it's going to probably take some time for the stuff that we've talked about to materialize in any way. And if they can win 4 games this year, that's great. And even if they go 2-10 again, I think it's probably too early to say it's not working.
Western Michigan, Blake Bosma, tight end. He's back. He's your you're also non-Harold Fannin. Really good MAC tight end last year. I believe he was a freshman all-MAC, I should say. I don't know about freshman all-American, but he was a good player. The bud here, Tate Halleck and Aaron Wolford, they're a good safety tandem. The problem is the corner deal is different. Got different corners, so it's one of those things where, look, bad corner play can translate to your safeties having a bad time, just as the vice versa. So maybe they'll be good, maybe they won't. We'll see. On offense, they only lost 4 fumbles last year, by the way. So keep that in mind because, as we know with fumble luck, it is very cyclical, and 4 fumbles was among the nation's fewest lost fumbles.
I was thinking about this as we were getting ready for this show. The 2016 Western Michigan team that went 13-0 and then lost the Cotton Bowl to Wisconsin, is that the wildest outlier season that any program in FBS has ever had? For reference, positively. For reference, in 63 years since the MAC got major designation, and Western Michigan has been in the conference the whole time, they've literally not won more than 9 games any other year. Only 3 of those. They've had no 10, no 11, no 12 win seasons. And I think that I still think about them as like a team that could pop some year and be one of the best teams or the best team in the G5. But I think I have to acknowledge that this is an insanely difficult job to be anything other than 500 at, or to be anything better than 500 at. Like it's, I think that my that's the only season, 2016, the only season in which they've even appeared in the AP poll at any time. And they finished 15th that year. And they had game day that year. And I kind of bring it up also to ask, like, what is the expectation for Lance Taylor, who improved last year, who won 4 games his first year, 6 the second year, lost the bowl game, but we don't care because it doesn't suit the argument that I'm trying to make. But like, you know, what do they hope for out of him? Like, is that a fan base that thinks about the Cotton Bowl 8 years ago or whatever it was, and thinks that that is what they should be, or can he just live in this job forever?
I don't think Western Michigan folks think that they should be undefeated.
No, but do they think that they should be in the MAC championship each year? I don't know.
I think your thesis on outlier season is pretty good. Obviously, we'll have to do some more research on that, but I actually think you're pretty close there, I would imagine.
We'll keep moving with Directional Michigan's Central. This team is very interesting to me this year, Richard, because of what they've done with their head coach hire, with Matt Drinkall, the offensive coordinator from Army. I'll go through a few things. I'll start with the bud, which is that the Drinkall thing is definitely an effort to try something.
Yeah, man.
Like it's
different.
off the beaten path.
Be different.
They might not be any good on that side of the ball, but they are trying, and their collection of types of players that they've added, if you mesh that with Drinkall's background, is intriguing to me. He had this bulldozing Army team last year, Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, and it looks like he's kind of playing with the Play-Doh here to try to find undervalued players who can fit into that ethos of offense. They've got an all-conference JUCO player as their center. They've got FCS and Division II transfers coming to join the line. Like, they went out and hired a guy who specializes in a thing, which is designing an offense that will run your ass over. And they're trying to do that thing with talent that they can get to Central Michigan. And I have nothing but praise for that approach. It's exactly what a program in Central's position needs to be trying to do. And I hope it works for them, and it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and how they did that is interesting. Like I've sat in Matt's office and watched film with Matt, and literally when Army was going into its option transition from option to something that looks a little more out of shotgun, RPO based, that sort of stuff. And we're watching film, and he's like, "Yeah, like dude, Alabama does that. We can do that here." Now they tried it, and it didn't really work the way that they thought they were going to do. So they basically ended up they went a little too far afield on that transition. Yeah. And so what they did was kind of basically bring it back in the middle. And you saw what happened last year when they got back to basics on a lot of stuff. Running
it worked.
And it worked. So Matt can be adaptable with his offensive system, and he's seen it as good as it can be as far as option football is concerned under Monken. And so it's going to be curious how they marry what he wants to do, because this is a guy who looks and sees football and says, like, at the end of the day, you run to win, and everybody runs to win. So how can you do that?
A blocking and tackling guy, if you will. Right. My thorn here, I'll also stay on the offense for a minute, is that there's nothing to be excited about that we know of at the skill positions. Joe Labas from Iowa was so-so last year and then got hurt. Quarterback, he's back. I think their best chance is probably just to try to do what Buffalo's going to try to do, what NIU did a few years ago, and just bulldoze people, run them over. But the problem is that neither of the two quarterbacks that they have, Jaden Glasser being the other, has really any running chops that they've shown in college football. So it is going to be a hard puzzle to solve for him, for Drinkall in his first year, which will make them an interesting ESPN Plus team to check in on your Saturdays and just see how this is all going.
On your Rose for me, show some respect.
And on Tuesday nights, that doesn't start until later in the season, but very good point. My rose is that I think the defense should be solid all around. Second and third levels both have stars. Safety Caleb Spann, Mike linebacker Jordan Kwiatkowski, who was second team all conference last year. Most of their top tacklers are back. Spann is their top PBU guy, their top ball hawk. He's back. It wasn't a good defense last year. They were 112 in SP Plus, but they were actually improved. And I think they, in a handful of games, showed the salt that you want to see out of a unit that brings a handful of top guys back. So I think Central Michigan more compelling this year all around than they've been in a little while. I cannot exactly say the same about the next team.
Tough situation at Akron. I think we talked about this offseason vibe checks wise. They are ineligible for the postseason, Alex, which I do have to give the folks at Akron credit here for. Ineligible for the postseason due to APR. I don't even know if anybody else has taken such an APR penalty recently. APR is academic progress rate. I'm not going to go all the way into it because it's pretty confusing, but it basically means that by an NCAA contrived metric, they are not good enough in the classroom. I think it's over a rolling 4-year period, but I could be wrong about that. So they're not going to the postseason literally. Could they do so in the vein of could they win 5 or 6 games? That may not be as beyond the pale as you think. Bill Connolly has them as a 1-score underdog in 5 games this season, and a favorite in 3 others. So there is a path to 5 or 6 wins here. There is.
I appreciate your note of optimism. It's more than I can really conjure here. When we talked about,
I think their Vegas total is like 4.5.
When we talked about these guys a couple weeks ago on the off-season coach firing, retiring confidence draft, we both had Akron, Joe Moorhead quite high up.
Yes.
On that list. And I wouldn't back off of that. It just feels like it has every hallmark of what we call a bad situation around here. For me, the APR thing is worth unpacking, not because I think that APR is like an amazing metric of how your players are doing in school, but because I feel like to not have a good enough APR to be eligible for a bowl game, it's suggestive of a resource and organizational problem in your athletic department.
Maybe. And again, I don't know the specifics of Akron's APR situation. So I'm not going to.
No, I don't either. But all I'm saying is that it's not hard if you have enough academic support staff to figure out a way to get your APR to a place where you can make a bowl game. And if you don't, it's like, what else is rotten?
Not necessarily, Alex, because of the portal situation. Because when you're bringing guys in from different schools, it changes credits, it changes how things transfer, it changes all those things. So I don't want to just sit here. You're not doing this, but I don't want to sit here and do the thing where it's like, oh, point and laugh at Akron because those kids are dumb.
I'm not laughing. I'm not doing it. In fact, I'm doing the opposite.
I know.
I'm suggesting that the school seems like it's got an organizational problem.
I know, but it could be beyond even that. Some stuff can kind of be out of control. Again, don't know the specifics of Akron, but that is the situation. Ben Finley, also quarterback, is back for a second year, his third school, but a second year at his third school.
Dang,
I don't know
Ben
if
Finley.
I don't know if
Cal?
that's Cal and that's NC State to you.
NC State before. Yep.
Yes, NC State before is where you may remember his previous work.
We'll move on. A tough one this year as well, and then we'll actually go back to Northeast Ohio to close it out, is Ball State. This was a 3-9 team last year that fired Mike New and is going off the beaten path as well. They've got 7 returning starters, none of them their quarterback or running back or receivers or top tacklers, none of their big stat getters anywhere. Are they good at anything this year? Well, it's really hard to know for sure. Really hard to find where they are. I think the most exciting player that they added this offseason is a running back, Quay Ashley, who comes over from Kennesaw State, where he did not have gaudy stats as a running back, but he was one of the best kick return men in college football last year. 29 yards per return and one of just 5 guys nationally to make 2 house calls on kickoff returns. These guys have also, kind of like Miami, just been beaten up by the portal the past few cycles. You'll remember Carson Steele, really good running back, went to UCLA a few years ago. They took Marquez Cooper from Kent State. He left the next year. It's still happening to them this offseason. They lost their quarterback, best freshman in the MAC, Caden Samanza, who went to Tulane, where it seems, by the way, like he's probably not even going to play. They lost Tanner Koziol, tight end, who went to Houston. Nice to see them restock with a fun running back who might have some upside. But this is a program that has just gotten it bad in the portal and NIL era. And I'm not sure, how big a toll that's going to take. My guess is pretty big. What I'm budding about, though, what I'm curious about, Richard, especially in the context that I just laid out, is that they hired a coach, Mike Uramovich, who is coming from the non-scholarship Pioneer Football League to an FBS job. That's interesting, and that's a good test of, in 2025 in FBS, how much can you have a football coach who is just about ball? Like a guy who can draw up plays and build culture and win games with the guys that he has. And I think if there's any league to try it in, It's the MAC, which is the most frozen in time financially league in FBS. Like just getting past, like it's standing still sometimes by even the other G5 leagues economically. So you go in here and you get a guy who coached in literally who coached in a non-scholarship football league up to this year. He's bringing along a first team all Pioneer League left tackle, Adam Dolan, with him. Can you be a throwback team and just do it with basically no paying players budget and with every bit of structural adversity imaginable? I'm interested to see it. And my thorn is they lost their quarterback. Caden Simonza, he was good. He was a guy to be excited about. He's going to go and I think be a backup at Tulane, it seems like, given some of the other moves that they've made. And it just seems like it probably leaves a gaping problem for the Ball State offense.
Kent State. I think I'm going to make a decree on Split Zone Duo. If you go 0-12, you don't get a rose in the college football preview series that we do. If you go 0-12, you forfeit your ability to get a rose. We've got to have a code on this show. Enough is enough. This ain't no charity. Thoughts?
Yeah. I think you're right.
Thank you. It's tough, but it's fair. And I think at the end of the day, you've got to draw a hard line. There are buds here, though. Specifically, Jordan Newman, who's a running back. Ironically, he's a Minnesota transfer. I'm assuming former head coach Kenny Burns had ties to him, which ties into, frankly, the thorn. The coaching situation. Kenny Burns fired in the middle of the offseason. Mark Carney is the interim head coach.
The prime minister.
But
they call him Maple Leaf.
But Kent State has already announced that they are going to do a search. So I don't know how well Mark Carney would have to do in this job to get a real honest look. It's a hard position to be in. Frank Reich is in the same position. It's a hard position to be in. To come in as
an interim. Frank Reich. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to come in as an interim and try to make hay at all, even if you're at Stanford versus when you're at Kent State. And you're coming off being the worst team in college football last year. We've done a Why You're Always Bad on Kent State on this year's Split Zone Duo feed. We did that show earlier this offseason, which kind of dug deep into, well, why Kent State's always bad.
Yeah, you should go listen. It was like in February with Roger Sherman, and then a couple weeks later, they fired their coach for weird offseason stuff.
Yeah, so weird situations there, but it is Kent State, so it is a, unfortunately, terminally bad situation.
Yeah, pretty much always. I was trying, Richard, to find something rosy, but I couldn't really. They have the number one returning kick returner in the league by total return yardage, Deshaun Martin. Those are the kind of depths that we're going to.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's nothing here. I think last year,
by the way,
there was one team that I talked about in this way where I was like, I can't find anything good. It was Temple. Their coach was fired a few weeks into the season.
Alex, if you are leading the nation in total kick return yardage.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, I know. Total yardage being the key there.
Okay.
Yeah,
preseason,
you don't want
dude of the year. We're not going to kick Kent the Golden Flash while they're down. Preseason dude of the year. I'm going Red Murdoch. The Buffalo linebacker room is going to be incredible. Buffalo's going to be a good team, like I said. Great defense. I think probably the best defense in the MAC. Probably right that in Sharpie. So I'm taking the Bulls linebacker room and Red Murdoch.
I'm staying at Buffalo, actually, but I'm going to the offense. Al-Jay Henderson, true featured back, was the reason their offense went from horrendous to kind of solid in Pete Lembo's first year, even though the defense got most of the attention. What I'm intuiting from this is that when we do our time capsule at the end of the offseason where we actually pick every conference and pick the playoff race, et cetera, I'm guessing Buffalo might be showing up as it relates to the MAC, but we'll find out as we get to that point. Lower key cool game of the year. Richard, I have two. You already mentioned one of them, which is Toledo going to Kentucky to open up. I really like Toledo's chances for an upset there. I would put it close to a toss-up. Also, November 4th, Miami at Ohio could be one of the really good games in this conference this year. Winner has a good chance to have the inside track to Detroit.
Did you know that Ohio hosts West Virginia this year? Which means West Virginia has got to go to Athens, not that Athens, the other Athens.
Yeah, the teams have done this. I remember Pitt played there a time or two when I was a kid.
Into the furnace, baby. They have a 2-for-1 deal with West Virginia, so Ohio will head to West Virginia, to Morgantown, I think twice within the next 5 or 6 years. I think, as I saw.
I'm a fan of 2-for-1s. I like it when we get power conference teams in G5 stadiums, and a lot of teams will never do this, but you'd be surprised at the ones that would.
At SEC Media Days, they asked Sam Pittman if he wanted to play Arkansas State in Jonesboro,
yeah.
And he was just like flat, like hell no, like not even entertaining it for a second. Didn't even like dance around, like quite unequivocally said, "I ain't going there."
No, they're playing in Little Rock this year,
yes, they're
which
is
I think, more or less neutral.
Yeah, but that's the end of the deal, I believe, with Little Rock. This year is the end of their deal with Little Rock, is what he was saying.
Yeah, Arkansas stadium situation with Little Rock is politically fraught. It's interesting. Well, I feel like people have been talking for 10 years about whether Arkansas should be playing games at War Memorial or not. Oklahoma's playing at Temple this year, by the way.
We are very aware of that as well.
Yes.
Watch this.
More on that later. Yeah.
Watch the space.
So, yeah, I'm generally a fan, though, of when SEC or Big 10 teams or Big 12 teams in West Virginia's case will go and play games in these environments. Richard, give us your minority coordinator of the week, of the year, in an interesting schematic spot. As I understand it, this is not a predictor of success.
No, not a portender or predictor of success in any way, shape, or form. It's simply taking a minority coach in an interesting schematic spot and saying, hey, that's interesting. I should have mentioned it when I mentioned him, but it's Eddie George. It's quite clearly Eddie George. The port here from Tennessee State, again, it's something I find fascinating. It's something that I've sort of pounded the table on this show for years, which is you can be creative when you hire white coaches, but can you be creative when you hire minority coaches? Colorado was creative when they hired Deion. No matter how you think about it, that was a creative move. Bowling Green, similarly creative when they did this with Eddie George. So let's see how this goes.
I like it personally. I think that I'd say this. I like it. I actually think that Scott Loeffler did a better job than most of us acknowledged in real time. And so I think one of the interesting differences between Eddie and Deion's situation is that Deion was pretty much taking over a waste site when he got to Colorado. I mean, they were the worst team in the Pac-12, and there was just nothing whatsoever to be excited about. Bowling Green is not 1-for-1 because it's a MAC job, but they've actually become one of the better teams in this league in recent years. And maybe that gives you a little bit of hope that this, and just kind of combined with the ability to turn things quickly in the MAC, gives me a little hope that we get to see some kind of quick fireworks here. But it's hard because the best player maybe in like the history of the program did just roll out to go to the NFL, and Harold Fannin Jr. We're going to find out. Richard, the coach who is not going to be here next year, fired, retired, new job.
I'm going to take Jason Candle because, again, we are in the will he or won't he with Jason Candle. I'm going to take Jason Candle. Does he finally move on? Obviously, honorable mention Joe Moorhead, whether firing or moving on to be an offensive coordinator somewhere. But obviously, Jason Candle's kind of beat around the bush at doing that himself over the last few years. I also wonder, I wonder if Buffalo, competes for the league or gets close to it. And let's say Maryland opens, for instance. You give Pete Lembo a call?
Pete Lembo for Maryland? No.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
Former Maryland assistant, not good enough for
it.
Huh.
No, I'll tell you why in part. Number one, I think Maryland would try to do something sexier, but also Lembo was only there for a minute, and he was there under DJ Durkin, who sucks and who is not well liked at Maryland. Nothing against Lembo. Lembo was, I believe, gone from the program. I don't think anyone holds him even remotely responsible for the stuff that got DJ Durkin fired at Maryland, the death of Jordan McNair specifically. But and the culture around the program, even more specifically, being what I think got DJ Durkin fired. But no, I don't think he would be up for Maryland. Interesting, though, the idea of Maryland opening. Maybe we'll come back to that. I will say that last year, Richard, when we did this, I think it's interesting to look back when we were picking guys who weren't going to be here from last year's teams. We went 0 for, I think, last year. I took
Moorhead last year, didn't I?
you took Moorhead last year, and I took like a grab bag. Like I just kind of threw out Candle and Moorhead, and here we are doing it again. And I guess I'm bringing that up to say we're going to look up in a few years, and Jason Candle might have been at Toledo for 15 years. Since Matt Campbell.
Still winning, still competing for the league.
Yeah, like that's kind of
got it.
Might just be his thing. He you might look up and he might be one of the longest. He already is one of the longer tenured head coaches in FBS. I believe this is going to be his 10th season at Toledo.
Yeah,
get that offhand.
Not off the top of my head. I do not have.
This is going to be his 10th season as the head coach, not counting the one in which he coached the bowl game after Matt Campbell went to Iowa State. All right, Richard, that's the Mid-American Conference previewed for 2025. It was a pleasure to do it with you. Preview season rolls on. Next up on our docket, any guesses?
We're going down to, mostly Texas, I should say. Big 12.
Plurality, Texas, not mostly. See you soon.